Nike is still the biggest sports brand in the world. But something feels different. The hype isn't the same. The drops don't hit like they used to. And for the first time in years, people are starting to look elsewhere. Not because Nike disappeared, but because it stopped being exciting. And the strange part is, most people haven't even noticed yet. So what exactly happened to Nike? To really understand this, you have to look at what Nike actually built. Because this isn't just another brand struggling to keep up. Nike has been dominant for decades. Not just in sales, but in influence. There was a time when Nike didn't follow culture, it said it. Product drops weren't just releases, they were moments. People paid attention. And more importantly, they cared. You'd see a new pair, and almost immediately, it felt like something you needed to have. Not because of features, but because of what it represented. That's the part a lot of brands never figure out. Nike wasn't just selling shoes. It was selling identity. Performance, status, ambition. All of it packaged into something as simple as a sneaker. And they made it feel natural. Effortless, even. Across sports, fashion, and everyday wear, Nike stayed relevant without looking like it was trying too hard. Which is exactly why it worked. Because when a brand feels effortless, people trust it more. They believe it belongs. So when you look at that level of consistency, the influence, the positioning, the cultural control, it's hard to imagine something like that slipping. Not suddenly. Not noticeably. And yet, that's exactly what started to happen. It didn't happen all at once. That's what makes it easy to miss. There wasn't a big moment where everything just fell apart. No headline. No obvious turning point. It was quieter than that. The kind of change you only notice after it's already been happening for a while. You start to see it in small ways. A drop comes out, and it doesn't feel like an event anymore. It's available longer than you expected. People aren't rushing the same way. And at first, it doesn't seem like a big deal. You just assume. Maybe it's that particular release. Maybe it's just not that exciting. But then it happens again. And again. And slowly, something that used to feel rare starts to feel normal. That urgency Nike used to create? It begins to fade. And once that urgency drops, everything else starts to shift with it. Because hype isn't just about the product itself. It's about how hard it is to get. How many people want it. How quickly it disappears. When those things change, the perception changes too. And Nike started releasing more. More colorways. More variations. More frequent drops. On paper, that sounds like growth. More products, more availability, more sales. But in reality, it started to do something else. It made everything feel less special. Because when you see something everywhere, you stop reacting to it. You stop feeling like you might miss out. And once that feeling is gone, the relationship between the brand and the customer changes. It becomes less emotional, more casual. And Nike was always strongest when the connection was emotional. That's what made people care in the first place. So when that starts to weaken, even slightly, it creates an opening. Not a collapse. Not yet. But an opening. And in a market this competitive, that's all other brands need. Because while Nike was becoming more available, something else was happening at the same time. While all of this was happening, something else was quietly changing too. Not inside Nike, but around it. Because culture doesn't stay still. It moves. It evolves. And the brands that stay on top are usually the ones that move with it. Or even better, move before it. That used to be Nike's advantage. They were early. They understood what people wanted before it became obvious. But over time, that position started to shift. You began to see other brands stepping into spaces that Nike used to dominate. Not by copying, but by approaching things differently. Take New Balance for example. For a long time, it wasn't even part of the conversation in the same way. It was seen as practical, comfortable, maybe even a bit boring. But then something changed. The designs became sharper. The collaborations became more intentional. And slowly it started showing up in places you wouldn't expect. On people who care about style. On people who usually set trends, not follow them. And that shift matters. Because culture doesn't move when everyone adopts something. It moves when the right people do. At the same time, Adidas started finding its footing again. After a period where it felt a bit lost. It began to reconnect with what made it relevant in the first place. Cleaner designs. More focused releases. And most importantly, a sense of direction. Even newer players started gaining attention. Brands like Hoka, which leaned heavily into performance, but still managed to cross into everyday wear. And On Running, which positioned itself in a way that felt premium, modern, and slightly different from everything else on the market. None of these brands replaced Nike. That's not what happened. What changed was more subtle than that. They gave people alternatives. Real alternatives. And once people have options, they start to explore. Especially if the brand they've been used to no longer feels as exciting as it once did. And that's where Nike found itself in a difficult position. Not because it became irrelevant, but because it was no longer the only obvious choice. And in a space driven by attention and perception, that shift is everything. Because once you stop being the default, you have to start competing again. And that's a very different game. But even that wasn't the biggest problem. The real issue started when one of Nike's biggest strategic decisions began to work against it. Up to this point, you could still argue that what was happening to Nike was just the market evolving. More competition, changing tastes. Nothing unusual. But there was one decision, one major shift, that made everything more complicated. And it had to do with how Nike chose to sell its products. For years, Nike relied heavily on retail partners. Stores, platforms, distributors. They were the bridge between Nike and the customer. And those partners didn't just sell products. They helped build the brand. They created environments where releases felt important. They added context. They added energy. But then Nike decided to take more control. It shifted aggressively toward a direct-to-consumer model, which, on the surface, makes perfect sense. Sell directly. Keep more profit. Control the experience. From a business standpoint, it's a strong move. And for a while, it worked. Revenue grew. Margins improved. Everything looked like progress. But underneath that success, something else was happening. By pulling away from retailers, Nike also pulled away from something less obvious. Distribution of attention. Those retail partners weren't just middlemen. They were amplifiers. They helped create scarcity. They helped create excitement. And when Nike reduced that network, it unintentionally reduced some of that energy too. Now, instead of products being discovered across different spaces, everything started flowing through the same channels, the same apps, the same platforms, which made the experience more controlled, but also more predictable. And when something becomes predictable, it becomes easier to ignore. On top of that, Nike had to keep feeding its own system. More direct sales meant more product needed to move, which led to more releases, more inventory, more availability. And slowly, the balance started to shift. What used to feel limited started to feel accessible. And what used to feel exclusive started to feel common. The strategy itself wasn't wrong. But the side effects, those were harder to control. Because Nike didn't just change how it sold products. It changed how people experienced the brand. And once that experience changes, perception follows. And that's where things started to stack up. More availability, less urgency, more control, less discovery. And over time, that combination starts to wear something down. Not the business itself, but the feeling around it. And for a brand like Nike, that feeling is everything. Because once the feeling shifts, everything else follows. And this is where the problem becomes more visible. Not in the numbers at first, but in how people respond. In how they talk about the brand. In how quickly they move on to something else. And that's when you start to see the real impact. When you step back and look at everything together. The shifts in culture, the strategy changes, the increase in releases. It all points to one thing. Nike didn't suddenly become a worse brand. It just became too available. And that might not sound like a problem at first. Because normally, more availability means more success. More people can buy. More products can move. But brands like Nike don't operate like normal products. Their value isn't just in what they sell. It's in how they're perceived. And perception changes when something starts to feel common. Think about it like this. There was a time when getting certain Nike releases felt like an achievement. You either got lucky, or you didn't. That uncertainty was part of the appeal. It made the product feel important. But when that same product, or something very close to it, becomes easier to get, the feeling changes. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just enough. And once that shift happens, people start thinking differently. They hesitate a little more. They wait a little longer. The urgency disappears. And when urgency disappears, attention follows. Because attention is driven by the fear of missing out. And if there's nothing to miss, there's no reason to rush. Over time, this creates a very specific kind of effect. The brand is still everywhere. But it feels less important. You see it more. But you react to it less. And that's a difficult position to be in. Because from the outside, everything still looks strong. The products are there. The visibility is there. But the emotional response, the part that actually drives demand, starts to weaken. And once that happens, it doesn't take much for people to start exploring other options. Not because they've rejected Nike, but because they're no longer as attached to it. And that's a very different kind of problem. Because losing attention slowly is harder to fix than losing it all at once. You can't just launch one product and bring everything back. You have to rebuild the feeling. And that takes time. Which is why, by this point, the impact starts to show more clearly. Not just in how people feel, but in what they do next. By this point, the effects aren't subtle anymore. You can actually see them. Not in one big moment, but in patterns, in behavior, in how people respond to the brand now compared to before. There's less urgency, less excitement around releases. Products stay available longer. Conversations don't last as long. And maybe the biggest shift is that Nike is no longer the automatic first choice for a lot of people. Not because it became bad, but because it became optional. And that's a very different position from where it used to be. Before, Nike didn't really compete in the same way. It led. Now, it's part of the same consideration set as everyone else. You see someone choosing between Nike and something else, and actually taking time to decide. That didn't used to happen as often. And once that shift begins, it changes how the entire brand is perceived. Because perception isn't just about visibility. It's about position. Are you leading? Or are you being compared? And more, Nike started to fall into that second category. You also see it in how people talk about the brand. The tone changes. It becomes less about excitement, and more about evaluation. Less, I need this. More, it's okay. And that might sound small, but for a brand built on emotion, that difference is everything. Because once people start feeling neutral, it becomes easier to move on. And that's where the real risk is. Not in losing customers overnight, but in slowly losing attention. Because attention is what drives culture. And culture is what built Nike in the first place. So when that attention starts to spread out, Across different brands, different styles, different ideas. Nike doesn't disappear. It just becomes part of the background. Still present. Still strong. But no longer the center of the conversation. And once a brand reaches that point, the next question becomes unavoidable. Can it take that position back? By this point, the question almost writes itself. Because when a brand like Nike starts losing that emotional pull, the immediate assumption is usually, maybe they just need a better product, or maybe a bigger campaign, or a new athlete, or a viral moment. But the truth is, none of that is actually the main problem. Because Nike still has everything you'd normally need to dominate a market. The resources are still there. The money. The production power. The global scale. The legacy? That one is almost unmatched. This is the brand that shaped modern sneaker culture. That turned athletes into global icons. That made performance wear feel like identity. And even now, the distribution is still everywhere. From flagship stores to retail shelves to online drops, Nike is not hard. So on paper, nothing looks broken. And that's what makes this situation so interesting. Because when a brand still has all the external power, but starts losing internal pull, attention, excitement, anticipation, it creates a different kind of problem. One that doesn't respond to the usual fixes. You can't just scale it. You can't just advertise your way out of it. You can't simply release more products and expect the feeling to come back. Because the issue isn't visibility. It's perception. And perception doesn't move as fast as strategy does. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because internally, everything can look correct. The numbers might still be strong enough. The infrastructure still solid. The business still performing. But outside that system, people are feeling something different. Less attachment. Less urgency. Less emotional weight behind the swoosh. And once that shift happens, it creates a gap. A gap between what the brand is and what people feel it is. That gap is where most brands struggle. Because fixing a perception problem is harder than fixing a product problem. A product problem has a solution. You improve it. You replace it. You iterate. But perception? Perception is built slowly and lost even slower. And that's why the real challenge for Nike isn't whether it can still compete. It's whether it can make people feel the same way again. Because without that feeling, even the strongest system in the world starts to feel ordinary. So when you look at everything together, what's happening to Nike isn't really a collapse. It's something quieter than that. A shift in position. Because Nike is still powerful. Still global. Still everywhere you look. But influence doesn't just come from presence. It comes from attention. And attention today is more fragile than ever. There was a time when Nike didn't need to fight for it. It pulled it. Now, it has to share it. And that changes everything. Because when a brand is no longer the first thing people think of, it doesn't disappear. It just becomes one option among many. Still strong. Still respected. But no longer untouchable. And maybe that's the real story here. Not that Nike fell, but that the game around it changed faster than it did. So the question isn't really whether Nike is still big. It is. The real question is, in a world where attention moves this fast, can any brand stay the center forever? And if you found this breakdown interesting, you'll probably want to see what's really happening behind the next big name people think is too big to fail. Because most of the time, the warning signs are already there.